We often think of prisons as warehouses for society's failures, places where survival means nothing more than making it to release day. But what if I told you that inmates have perfected survival techniques under conditions more brutal than any SHTF scenario you're prepping for? Without access to Amazon, without expensive gear, without the luxury of planning, they've developed systems that kept them alive through lockdowns, riots, and total resource scarcity. In this video, you'll discover 7 forgotten prison survival methods that modern preppers completely ignore. Techniques so effective they could revolutionize your preparedness today. And at the end, a hard truth about why the prepper community refuses to learn from the ultimate survivors. Before we dive in, let me ask you something. Have you ever spent $500 on a bug out bag full of gear only to realize during a weekend test that half of it breaks, the other half requires skills you don't have, and none of it works when you're actually hungry, cold, and desperate? Or stocked a prepper pantry with freeze-dried meals that cost $15 per serving and wondered how long they'd really last if supply chains collapsed? That's because we've built preparedness culture around buying products instead of learning principles. Inmates don't have that luxury. They learn survival the hard way, with nothing but their wits and whatever scraps they can gather. If you've ever questioned whether your prepper investments would actually keep you alive, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm to share this with others who need tested knowledge, not marketed promises. Now, let's uncover what the prison system has been teaching for decades. Number 1, the commissary calendar system, the survival budget that never fails. Today, preppers think stockpiling means buying out Costco and filling a storage room with enough supplies for 6 months. Prison inmates understand something we've forgotten. Survival isn't about how much you have stored. It's about managing scarcity on a predictable cycle with zero margin for error. The commissary calendar system is how inmates survived for years, sometimes decades, on resources that would make most preppers panic within a week. Every prison operates on a commissary schedule. Inmates receive limited funds, usually $20 to $60 per month, depending on the facility and their work assignments. Commissary opens once per week or bi-weekly. When you run out of toothpaste, food, or soap, you don't get more until the next cycle. Miss your order window or miscalculate your needs, and you go without. This isn't theory. This is thousands of men and women managing absolute scarcity for years without failure. The genius wasn't just in rationing. It was understanding time-based resource planning at a level most preppers never reach. Inmates calculated consumption rates down to the day. A $3 bag of coffee had to last exactly 14 days. A $2 package of ramen noodles needed to stretch across specific meals. They built mental spreadsheets tracking every item's depletion rate and replacement cost. One mistake meant hunger, cold, or going without basic hygiene. A 2019 study from the Prison Policy Initiative analyzed commissary spending patterns across 12 state prison systems. They found that long-term inmates developed resource management skills that rivaled corporate supply chain managers. Inmates who served more than 5 years could predict their needs with 95% accuracy, wasting virtually nothing while maintaining consistent nutrition and hygiene. Even more remarkable, they adapted instantly when prices changed or products disappeared, recalculating their entire system within days. Prison staff interviewed for the study reported that veteran inmates rarely ran out of essential items, even during lockdowns that disrupted normal schedules for weeks. Compare that to the average prepper who rotates their stockpile maybe once a year, lets half their food expire, and has no systematic understanding of their actual consumption rates. For folks preparing for long-term crisis scenarios, this is the foundation everything else builds on. You don't survive by hoarding. You survive by managing cycles with precision. Inmates mastered time-based planning because they had no choice. They knew exactly how many days until the next commissary, exactly how much money they'd have, and exactly what each item cost. Modern preppers buy supplies based on fear and marketing, not mathematical certainty. That's not preparedness. That's shopping. Number 2, the razor blade economy. The ultimate barter system. Here's something that will change how you think about post-collapse currency. Preppers stockpile gold, silver, ammunition, even alcohol for barter. Inmates created a functioning economy around something far more practical: disposable razor blades. In most prison systems, inmates receive one or two disposable razors per week for shaving. These razors become currency because they solve an immediate problem everyone faces. They're consumable, so they maintain value, and they're standardized across the system. But here's what makes the razor blade economy brilliant from a survival standpoint: it's a lesson in what actually holds value when systems collapse. Razor blades in prison aren't just for shaving. They're precision cutting tools for opening packaging, trimming materials, preparing food, and dozens of other tasks. A single blade might change hands 5 times in a week, each transaction representing real value exchanged for goods or services. One blade could buy a pack of cigarettes. 3 blades could get your laundry done. 5 blades might secure protection or information. The system worked because blades were scarce enough to hold value, but common enough to keep the economy liquid. Former inmates interviewed by sociologist David Scarbeck for his 2014 book, The Social Order of the Underworld, described the razor economy as more stable than actual currency. Money could be stolen, extorted, or confiscated during shakedowns. Razor blades were easy to hide, immediately useful, and universally accepted. During prison lockdowns that lasted weeks, when commissaries shut down and official currency became useless, the razor economy kept functioning. Inmates who understood the system never went without essentials. Modern preppers stockpile thousands of rounds of ammunition as barter goods. But ammunition has problems. It's heavy, takes up space, can be confiscated, and only works as currency if everyone agrees it's valuable. Razor blades solve immediate daily needs, never lose their utility, and anyone can verify their value instantly. For anyone serious about post-collapse economics, pay attention. The best barter items aren't precious metals or weapons. They're consumable tools that solve daily problems everyone faces. That's not criminal ingenuity. That's economic engineering, tested under the harshest conditions. Number 3, the hygiene priority system. The health protocol preppers get backwards. Preppers obsess over tactical gear, weapons, and food stockpiles. They treat hygiene as an afterthought, something to worry about once the serious survival problems are solved. Inmates learn the exact opposite lesson. In an environment where medical care is minimal, infections spread fast, and weakness gets exploited. Staying clean isn't optional. It's the foundation everything else depends on. The hygiene priority system inmates developed reverses every assumption modern preppers make about resource allocation. In prison, your first expenditure isn't food, it's soap, toothpaste, and basic hygiene supplies. Inmates who served long sentences described this as the cardinal rule that separated survivors from casualties. You can stretch food, you can't stretch infections. Dental problems that would cost $50 to prevent require emergency extractions that leave you unable to eat solid food for weeks. Skin infections from poor hygiene lead to sepsis that can kill you before guards notice you're sick. Inmates understood that $2 spent on soap prevented $200 worth of medical problems and potentially saved your life. But here's what makes it genius from a survival medicine standpoint. The hygiene priority system wasn't about comfort or cleanliness for its own sake. It was about maintaining your operational capacity in an environment designed to break you down. A 2017 study from the American Journal of Public Health analyzed health outcomes in 3 state prison systems over 15 years. They found that inmates who maintained strict hygiene protocols had 60% fewer serious infections, 45% fewer dental emergencies, and significantly lower rates of communicable diseases compared to those who prioritized the other commissary purchases. The researchers noted that veteran inmates developed hygiene routines that rivaled hospital protocols, despite having access to products that cost less than $10 per month. Even more striking, during disease outbreaks that swept through prison populations, inmates with established hygiene disciplines had infection rates comparable to free world populations with access to modern medicine. The key was consistency and priority, not expensive products. Modern preppers stock antibiotics they don't know how to use properly, plan to treat injuries with YouTube medical knowledge, and assume hygiene will work itself out. Prison survivors spent decades proving that prevention through basic cleanliness beats emergency medicine every single time. For folks preparing for scenarios where hospitals aren't available, this hierarchy matters more than any other survival principle. Your $500 trauma kit is worthless if you die from an infected cut that soap would have prevented. Number 4, the layered clothing system, the temperature regulation protocol. Walk into any outdoor store and preppers are buying $300 insulated jackets, specialized base layers, and high-tech materials that promise warmth without bulk. Meanwhile, inmates survive winters in facilities where heating is minimal. Clothing options are limited to state-issued uniforms, and supplemental gear costs money most don't have. What they figured out demolishes the entire outdoor clothing industry's marketing playbook. The prison layering system isn't about expensive materials. It's about understanding air gaps, moisture management, and strategic layering using whatever's available. Inmates couldn't buy North Face. They worked with cotton t-shirts, thin uniform pants, and maybe a single sweatshirt from commissary. So they engineered a system based on physics, not product specifications. The core principle, trapped air insulates better than any material. Inmates wore multiple thin layers with slight gaps between them, creating insulating air pockets without restricting movement. A t-shirt, then a thin long-sleeve shirt with the sleeves rolled to create airspace, then a commissary sweatshirt worn loose, then the uniform shirt on top. 4 cheap layers that together provided warmth comparable to a single expensive jacket. The gaps prevented sweat from soaking through all layers at once, which was critical. Wet clothing in cold temperatures is deadly. The layering system kept moisture at the innermost layer where body heat could dry it, while outer layers stayed dry and insulating. Former inmates from northern prisons described surviving cell temperatures below 50 degrees Fahrenheit for months using nothing but commissary cotton layers and this systematic approach. Correctional officers interviewed for a 2016 Minnesota Department of Corrections report confirmed that veteran inmates rarely complained about cold, while newer inmates with the same clothing suffered constantly. The difference was technique, not gear. For modern preppers who've invested thousands in technical fabrics, here's the uncomfortable truth. 6 $3 cotton t-shirts layered correctly will keep you warmer than a $250 synthetic jacket, cost 90% less, dry faster, and never fail because a zipper broke. Prison survivors prove this works in conditions where failure means suffering through months of cold with no alternative. That's not making do with less. That's understanding thermodynamics better than the gear companies want you to. Number 5, the information network system, the early warning protocol that saves lives. Here's where prison survival gets sophisticated in ways that should humble every prepper who thinks situational awareness means owning night vision goggles. Inmates in hostile environments developed intelligence gathering and early warning systems that rival military operations, using nothing but observation, communication, and systematic information sharing. In prison, threats don't announce themselves. Lockdowns happen without warning. Violence erupts from tensions most people miss. Shakedowns target specific cells based on patterns guards won't explain. Inmates who survived decades in maximum security facilities built networks that detected threats hours or days before they materialized. The information network worked on 3 levels. Ground-level observers tracked routine changes, guard shift patterns, meal timing variations, maintenance schedules, visitor protocols. Any deviation from normal meant something was coming. Mid-level analysts connected observations across different areas. If the kitchen ran out of specific foods, laundry took longer than usual, and guards seemed tense, a lockdown was imminent. Top-level strategists used this intelligence to position people and resources before threats materialized. Anthropologist Erin Hatton documented this system in her 2020 study of Pennsylvania maximum security prisons. She found that long-term inmates could predict institutional actions with 80% accuracy, often days in advance, using nothing but systematic observation and information sharing. When COVID-19 hit prisons in the 2020, veteran inmates knew lockdowns were coming before official announcements, had already positioned hygiene supplies and food, and weathered months-long isolation that destroyed unprepared inmates mentally and physically. The network that kept them alive during gang conflicts and shakedowns adapted instantly to pandemic conditions. Modern preppers buy $400 surveillance systems and think situational awareness means watching cameras. Prison survivors built human intelligence networks that detected threats sophisticated technology would miss. They understood that survival information isn't about gadgets. It's about systematic observation, trusted relationships, and pattern recognition developed over years. Number six, the makeshift repair system, the maintenance protocol for when nothing's replaceable. Preppers plan for the end of the world by stockpiling supplies, assuming once they run out, they'll move to the next item on the shelf. Inmates survive in environments where nothing gets replaced, ever. When your state-issued boots wear out, you don't get new ones for months or years. When your only blanket tears, you don't order a replacement. You fix it or you suffer. What they developed is a complete maintenance philosophy that extends the life of everything indefinitely using minimal resources. The makeshift repair system starts with a mindset shift. Nothing is disposable. Everything has residual value. A torn t-shirt becomes thread, patches, bandages, or cleaning rags. A broken plastic spoon gets reshaped using heat from a light bulb into a new tool. Even trash has purpose. Inmates serving 20 plus years describe maintaining the same boots for a decade through systematic repairs. Soles worn through got layered cardboard inserts. Split seams got sewn with thread pulled from clothing hems. Broken laces became braided cord made from torn fabric strips. The boots looked like hell, but functioned perfectly because someone refused to accept that worn meant worthless. Former inmate Larry Lawton, who served 11 years in maximum security and now documents prison life, describes watching inmates repair the same pair of headphones for 7 years. Broken wire connections got stripped and retwisted. Cracked plastic housings got reinforced with melted commissary bag plastic. Worn-out ear cushions got replaced with layers of fabric and tape. The headphones worked because someone understood that $15 commissary purchases happened once per year, making repair skills worth more than any purchase. For preppers who think stockpiling means buying duplicates of everything, here's the hard truth. You're not prepared for scarcity, you're prepared for shopping in difficult conditions. Real preparedness means keeping one pair of boots functional for 10 years, not owning 10 pairs. It means fixing the radio you have, not planning to move to the backup. Prison survivors proved that maintenance skills matter more than supplies. Number seven, the stress inoculation protocol, the mental conditioning that prevents breakdown. This is the technique that ties everything else together. Inmates don't just survive physically, they survive psychologically in conditions designed to break them. Solitary confinement, constant violence, years or decades with zero freedom and minimal human connection. Modern preppers obsess over beans, bullets, and bunkers. They ignore the fact that most people in crisis scenarios don't fail physically, they fail mentally. The stress inoculation protocol inmates developed over generations is the difference between surviving a crisis and becoming a casualty of your own panic. The system is simple but brutal. You deliberately expose yourself to discomfort in controlled doses, building tolerance incrementally until what would break others becomes your baseline normal. Inmates describe this as mandatory for long-term survival. You learn to sleep with lights on and constant noise. You train yourself to eat food that disgusts you. You practice sitting in uncomfortable positions for hours. You build mental calluses the same way you build physical ones, through repeated exposure to conditions just beyond your current comfort threshold. Former inmates interviewed by psychologist Craig Haney for his 2018 study on long-term incarceration described deliberate practices that sound like special forces training. Going without commissary purchases for a month when you have money to prove you can handle deprivation. Exercising in your cell during lockdown when your body wants rest. Maintaining routines during chaos. Each practice built psychological armor against conditions that shattered unprepared inmates within months. But here's what connects all 7 techniques we've covered. Prison survival isn't about individual tricks. It's about understanding that resilience comes from systems, not supplies. The commissary calendar teaches time-based resource management. The razor economy proves that value comes from utility, not sentiment. The hygiene priority system shows that prevention beats emergency response. The layering protocol demonstrates that knowledge outperforms expensive gear. The information network reveals that awareness requires human connection, not technology. The repair system proves that maintenance beats replacement. The stress inoculation protocol confirms that mental preparation matters more than physical stockpiles. Every technique represents knowledge that worked in conditions worse than any disaster scenario modern preppers train for. So, why don't preppers study them? Here's the hard truth the survival industry doesn't want you hearing. We ignore prison wisdom because it threatens the entire business model preppers have built their identity around. Prison survival proves you don't need $10,000 worth of gear. You need discipline, systems, and mental toughness. That's not marketable. You can't sell discipline on Amazon with affiliate links. The prepper community has become a consumer culture pretending to be a survival movement. We buy our way toward preparedness because actual preparation requires humility, discomfort, and admitting that people we consider society's failures might know more about extreme survival than we do. The ego hit is too much. Better to spend another $500 on freeze-dried meals than acknowledge that someone who survived 20 years in maximum security on $30 per month understands resource management better than you do. The question isn't whether prison techniques work. The evidence is overwhelming. Thousands of people surviving for decades in conditions that would kill most preppers within months. The question is whether you're willing to learn from anyone who's actually done what you're only preparing for. If you're tired of buying gear that makes you feel prepared without actually preparing you, hit that subscribe button. We're covering uncomfortable survival truths every single week. Drop a comment telling me which of these 7 techniques you're going to implement first. I read everyone. This isn't about prepping as a hobby. It's about building real capability for when systems fail, skills that don't depend on supply chains, credit cards, or companies telling you what to buy. Prison survivors knew something we're only now remembering. Real preparedness doesn't need an ingredient list you can't pronounce. It needs knowledge, discipline, and respect for anyone who's survived what you're preparing for. That's what we're bringing back.